So the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has stepped up. Another 100 people or so have died in another series of airstrikes that Israel has conducted starting on Sunday. But in the early hours of Monday, which is today, there were also attacks, airstrikes in Beirut, which is the capital of Lebanon. And what's new here is that generally certain airstrikes have been concentrated by Israel on a particular part of the city, which is in the southern parts, the Shia-dominated parts. But now you're seeing much more widespread airstrikes by Israel, which is coming off the backs of weeks of tensions with Hezbollah, and also after Israel has carried out strikes that have killed top Hezbollah commanders. Hezbollah, of course, being the Shia militia that controls large parts of Lebanon. But we've got some original reporting on the ground from our reporter Ashraf Wani, who is on the ground in Lebanon. Let's just listen to what he just sent us this morning.
Almost in a year's war between Hezbollah and Israel, now Israel on the Sunday evening targeted this building behind me here in the central Beirut. 3 people died. We believe it to be the political leaders, some top political leaders of Hezbollah had been targeted in this building behind me. You can see everything is shattered here. How many cars had got damaged. There is the presence of army and the security personnel and flight police, and how much devastating that blast had been in that multi-story building behind me, which has completely damaged it and has caused a lot of damage in that particular apartment where those people were living. 3 people are dead, 7 are injured, and still here the debris of this blast on this main road, which is known as Kola Road, is being cleared. This road has been suspended for the vehicular traffic here, as this is the main junction of Beirut city, where cars for different places move only from this area. Ashraf Wani for India Today in Beirut.
So there you have it from Ashraf Wani on the ground. What he's really referring to is a series of airstrikes that took place earlier this morning on parts of the capital of Beirut, as I was explaining, parts that have not so far been targeted since the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel has broken out. These two groups have been fighting for decades, really, but really after the October 7th attacks last year, when around 1,200 people in Israel were killed by Hamas, Hezbollah, which also joined in to attack Israel with a series of missile barrages. They've been having a series of clashes since then over the last year, and which has caused tens of thousands of people in northern Israel to be displaced from their homes. And now Israel is, of course, also retaliating and has killed hundreds of people in Lebanon with its airstrikes over just the last couple of days. Of course, while this is going on, this is just the immediate background, but as you know, what's been happening over the last couple of weeks is just a week or two ago, you had, as you might remember, these pager blasts that Israel had used pagers to explode and take out certain members of Hezbollah, which is, as I mentioned, a Shia militia. It is backed by Iran. It controls large part of Lebanon. It has significant influence in the country's politics and economics. So it's often referred to as a state within a state. You had just a week or two ago, these pager blasts that were carried out by Israel that killed dozens of people in Lebanon. Then you have had a series of airstrikes, and now you have had, of course, in just the last couple of days, the deaths of Hassan Nasarallah, who was the chief of Hezbollah really for decades on end, in an Israeli bombing. And also you have now the deaths of other senior Hezbollah commanders that have just taken place over the last couple of days. So really, this is an all-out Israeli offensive against this militia group Hezbollah. And of course, the main thing to remember here is that Israel is hoping to restore stability on that part of its border, because it wants people to return back home, and it also wants to break Hezbollah's ability to put pressure on Israel. Just a little while ago, I think on Saturday, we had Kabir Taneja, who's one of India's best experts in West Asia, explaining that what Israel is really looking for is to take advantage of the fact that right now it has degraded Hamas's capability as a military force in Gaza. So now what it wants to do is turn its attention north towards the border with Hezbollah, because remember, Hezbollah has been attacking Israel since the October 7th attacks. It has been a theater of the conflict that we have not covered as much, primarily because so much of the focus was on what is happening in Gaza. But Lebanon has absolutely been a part of the equation. Hezbollah, which like Hamas is backed by Iran, has also had a major role to play in what we have seen in the Middle East since October 7th. And what you're seeing now is really a culmination of that conflict. Israel taking out Hassan Nasarallah as well as senior commanders of Hezbollah, which has put the group really in disarray. On Sunday, there were 3 top commanders of Hezbollah that were killed, including Nabil Gaouk, who was a key commander, a member of Hezbollah's Central Council. Hassan Nasrallah died, of course, on Friday. So this has really been a very, very, in some senses, damaging series of events for Hezbollah. What you've also had is that Israel has launched strikes on the Houthis in Yemen. The Houthis are also a rebel group that have also fired missiles on Israel. You might remember the whole Red Sea crisis that was being talked about, where the Houthis were firing missiles at container shipping going through the Red Sea shipping route, trying to cut off Israel from its international trade. Those Houthis that are fighting the central government in Yemen have also launched several attacks on Israel over the past year or so. Now, Israel has struck back. It has attacked power plants. It has attacked a seaport, according to its telling of the tale, that were used by the Houthis. They've killed some people, around 4 people, as well as wounded dozens of others. And like I said, the Houthis, just like Hamas and Hezbollah, are part of these Iranian-backed militia groups in the Middle East. And remember, Iran and Israel, that is one of the main front lines in the region about what has been happening. So there's a massive humanitarian crisis, of course, now playing out in Lebanon. By some estimates, over 100,000 people are displaced. In northern Israel, around 60,000 people are displaced. So there's a humanitarian angle to this as well, what is going on in Lebanon. If we can get Ashraf Ghani back, he was just on with us. He's been talking to India Today and Aaj Tak as well. We had him as well, but he was then caught up at on the road at a security post. Now he's, of course, if he can join us, he will. But we've got his reports from the ground for you, and we'll keep putting them up for your consideration. But just to point out that not only is there a military crisis here that countries are trying to forestall, there's also a major diplomatic and security crisis. We had President Joe Biden saying that he would be talking to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and seeing whether something could be done to reduce tensions in the Middle East. He said very clearly that, look, he's going to fight like hell to make sure that there is an all-out war in the Middle East is contained. He mentioned that they're working with France and other countries. Remember, France and the United States had proposed a 21-day ceasefire in Lebanon. Of course, the Israelis did not adhere to that. They were not interested in that. They've gone out and they've, of course, killed Hassan Nasrallah as well as other senior Hezbollah commanders. And as I was mentioning, they've launched fresh bombings in all over Beirut today. So that is the situation as it stands right now. The United States, France, and a number of countries around the world trying to negotiate a diplomatic end to this conflict. Israel, on the other hand, really trying to make sure that it can inflict significant damage on Hezbollah, take out senior commanders and reduce Hezbollah's ability to retaliate to Israel as it takes on Hamas in Gaza, where it has also achieved some reduction in Hamas's military capabilities. But that's where we are. There is, you had the UN General Assembly recently, a number of countries coming out and condemning Israel. There's a lot of diplomatic pressure on Israel to sign a ceasefire agreement. But this is the situation where we're at. Later in the day, we're also going to have perhaps a live for you talking about Benjamin Netanyahu, someone who many people are asking whether he has now turned the political narrative around for himself. Remember that after the October 7th attacks, this was someone who was seen as finished politically. His political approval ratings were down. This was seen as a failure of his security project and a big stain on his legacy. Many calls for him to step down. He was embattled by corruption cases. But now, after the deaths of Nasrallah as well as other senior Hezbollah commanders, people are asking whether, in fact, This is a political comeback for Netanyahu. We're going to have some Israeli political analysts on for you to explain what these latest attacks mean for Benjamin Netanyahu and his political future domestically in Israel. But that's all we have for you right now. Thank you so much for joining us on India Today Global. If we can get Ashraf Wani back for you on the ground in Lebanon, we will for a live chat. If we cannot, we will have his reports conveyed to you, and we will absolutely put them up on our channel for your consideration. Thank you so much for joining us on India Today Global and tracking the story with us.